Close your eyes and imagine the gentle rocking of a wooden ship on an endless ocean. It is the early 16th century, a time when the world was vast and mysterious, when tall ships braved uncharted waters in search of lands and riches. The air is warm and salty. Above, the night sky is a tapestry of stars, undimmed by any city lights. A pale crescent moon casts a silver path on the waves. Occasionally, the dark water sparkles with its own faint light. Streaks of phosphorescence left in our ship's wake by tiny plankton, as if stars themselves are floating in the sea. In the soft glow of lanterns, a ship's sails billow quietly in the evening breeze. You are on the deck of this sailing ship, far from home, drifting through a bygone era. Tonight, we journey back to the age of discovery. This was an age of explorers and conquerors, but also of outlaws who roamed the seas. Perhaps you have heard romantic tales of pirates, of daring adventures under the Jolly Roger flag, but the reality of life as a pirate during these early years of exploration was anything but romantic. It was a life of hardship, hunger, fear, and violence. In this calm and gentle story, we will explore why surviving as a real pirate in those days would have been nearly impossible for most of us. Yet we will do so as if in a dream, softly recounting the daily life, the trials, and the fates of those who sailed under the skull and crossbones or under the flags of empires on the great blue expanse of the ocean. In the stillness of the night, picture the scene. The year could be around 1550, give or take a few decades, when European ships first spread across the globe. Great kingdoms, Spain, Portugal, England, are vying for new territories and the treasures of distant land. The Caribbean Sea is dotted with islands only recently charted by Europeans. The Spanish treasure fleets carry silver and gold from the Americas back to Europe, making tempting targets for bold seafarers. Across the world's oceans, ships from Europe are sailing to Africa, to Asia, and to the New World, loaded with spices, silk, and precious metals. It is a time of great opportunity and great danger on the high seas. Not everyone sailing these waters is an honorable explorer or a navy officer. Many are lawless pirates, others are privateers, sailors very much like pirates but holding a royal commission that legally allows them to attack enemy ships. In the Mediterranean, some are called corsairs, pirates who operate under the banner of a state or religion, plundering ships of opposing powers. And then there are the ordinary sailors of the King's Navy or merchant fleets, who are not pirates at all, but still endure similar hardships as they pursue their voyages. In reality, the line between these roles often blurs. A privateer might become a pirate when no one is looking, attacking any vessel he thinks carries wealth. A naval sailor might desert and join a pirate crew if life promises better pay or freedom. The ocean in this era is a lawless frontier in many places. As you stand on the gently swaying deck, you might wonder, what path led you here to a life of piracy? Perhaps you did not choose this life so much as it chose you. In these times, very few people set out to sea purely for adventure. Life on land could be harsh. A young person in Europe in the early 16th century might face poverty, limited opportunities, and even hunger. Going to sea, even with all its risks, offered a chance at steady food and a small wage, or possibly a share of plunder. Some men were lured by tales of exotic lands and the promise of treasure. Others were simply desperate, and some had no choice at all. It's possible you were a sailor in the Navy or on a merchant ship who fell on the wrong side of the law, or whose vessel was captured by pirates. You might have been given a grim choice: join the pirate crew or face death. Many pirates were once honest seamen pressed into piracy by force. Now imagine yourself as one of those souls who found themselves aboard a pirate vessel during this age of exploration. You feel the rough wooden planks under your feet and hear the dull crash of waves against the hull. The ship is not large, perhaps it is a repurposed caravel or a small galleon, the kind pirates favor for speed and agility. Her hull bears scars from past battles. Here and there a plank shows a patched crack from a cannon shot, and the railings are chipped and dented. The sails, though billowing proudly now, are actually pieced together in spots with canvas of different colours, evidence of repairs made after fierce storms and skirmishes. Despite this hodgepodge look, she is seaworthy and fast. a predator of the waves in her own right. By the faint light of dawn just beginning to touch the horizon, you can make out men, your crewmates, moving about on the deck. They are dressed in simple, worn clothes, faded cotton shirts, threadbare trousers patched many times, maybe a woolen cap against the morning chill. There is no grand uniform here. Pirates wear whatever they have, often the cast-off garments from previous voyages or items stolen from unlucky victims. You look down at your own attire. Your shirt is the color of unbleached linen, stained with sweat and salt. Your feet, if you're lucky, are protected by cracked leather shoes, though many of your companions go barefoot on the wet decks. A salty breeze ruffles your hair, which has grown a bit long and tangled during weeks at sea without a proper comb. Clean water is too precious to use for bathing, so you and everyone around you carry the ripe odor of unwashed bodies. It's a smell that has mingled with the scent of the ocean and the wooden timbers of the ship. As the sun slowly rises, the day's work begins. Life aboard this ship follows the rhythm of the sea and the sky. There is no modern comfort to be found. No engines hum, no electric light. Only the creak of the wooden hull and the snap of wind in the sails. The ship's navigation, too, is done by the old ways, by sun, stars, and compass. At noon each day, our sailing master measures the height of the sun with a cross staff or astrolabe to estimate our latitude. East or west, however, we can only reckon by dead reckoning, keeping track of our course and speed on a logline and hoping our calculations are right. A small error can carry us dozens of miles off track in the immensity of the ocean, a fact which always lurks at the back of everyone's mind. You and the crew have been sailing for many days now, perhaps weeks, out of sight of land. The initial excitement of leaving port has long faded. In its place is a routine that is both tedious and exhausting. The captain, a weathered man with a stern face, expects every crew member to do their duty without complaint. On a pirate ship, the captain's word is law during battle, but during calmer times he might consult the crew or heed a trusted quartermaster. Even so, discipline must be kept, for without it, a ship can descend into chaos. Your stomach rumbles as you think of breakfast. Food on board is simple and monotonous. In the early light, the ship's cook, who might have been a fisherman or even a butcher on land, brings out a barrel of ship's biscuits, hard, dry crackers baked months ago. You take one of these biscuits, it is as hard as a rock, and you have to tap it on the barrel to break off a piece. A weevil crawls out of the biscuit, disturbed by the sudden jolt. It's a biscuit full, rolled into a ball. Such sights don't bother you anymore. Most of the ship's bread is infested with insects by now. You flick the little beetle away, or perhaps you don't even bother, considering it just a bit of extra protein. You chew the tough biscuit slowly. It tastes of stale flour and salt, with a hint of mold from the dampness that seeps into all the food stores over time. To wash it down, you raise your mug for a drink. Surprisingly, it is not water. On this ship, as on most ships of the era, the drink for sailors is a form of weak beer or ale. Water stored in casks turns slimy and foul after weeks at sea. It often smells rotten and can make you terribly ill. Beer lasts longer. The mild alcohol keeps it drinkable. Each crew member has a ration of perhaps a gallon of weak beer per day. It sounds like a lot, but this beer is not very strong, and it's safer than the stagnant water. The beer is flat and warm from the tropical heat, but you take a long sip. It calms your thirst better than foul water would. On some days, if you're lucky or near a port, there might be a bit of wine or a tot of rum to lift spirits, but those are occasional treats. For now, the lukewarm ale must suffice. After this plain breakfast, tasks are assigned. There is never a day without work on a ship. You might be swabbing the deck, scrubbing the wooden boards with sand and seawater to keep them from becoming too slippery with grease or algae. Or you might be on sail duty, climbing up into the rigging like a spider on a web of ropes to adjust the sails. The sails are heavy canvas, and moving them is hard, physical labor. The ship is moving steadily under a fair wind, and every so often the boatswain's whistle shrills, signaling a change in direction or speed. That means hauling on ropes, the coarse hemp biting into your palms. Your hands have long since grown calloused. Many of your crewmates are sunburnt and scarred. It's common to see men with missing teeth or a missing finger, lost to a deck accident or a past skirmish. Each member of the crew has a role. Some handle the sails, Some stand watch at the bow, looking out for ships or hazards. Others attend to the cannons and weapons. There might be a carpenter aboard who can patch the hull if we strike a reef, and maybe a surgeon or someone who calls himself one, often just a fellow sailor with a razor who can amputate limbs when needed. On a pirate ship, roles are less formal than on a navy vessel, but everyone has skills to contribute. As the morning passes, the sun climbs higher and the heat grows. In these tropical waters, the midday sun is intense. There is little shade on deck except for the shadow of the sails. Sweat beads on your skin. The smell of the ship is strong now, an amalgam of tar from the ropes, salt from the sea, smoke from last night's galley fire, and the ever-present odor of many unwashed men living in close quarters. Now and then a breeze carries a whiff of something rank, perhaps the bilge, the low part of the ship where stagnant water, slop, and sewage collect. The crew pumps out the bilge water periodically, but it always seems to return. That foul muck breeds mosquitoes and spreads illness, though in these times no one knows exactly why disease comes. They only know that bad smells often accompany sickness, so they try to keep the ship aired out when they can. Sometimes the captain orders buckets of vinegar brought out so the decks can be scrubbed with it, hoping to chase away the unseen pestilence. The sharp tang of vinegar, when it wafts by, is actually a welcome break from the sweaty sourness of everything else. You look around at your comrades. There are perhaps 50 of you aboard this medium-sized vessel. Pirates in this age do not usually have the huge crews of later legend, but they have enough men to manage the ship and to overwhelm a typical merchant crew if they board them. The men are of various backgrounds. Many did not join of their own free will. In wartime, naval press gangs roam the docks and taverns, seizing able-bodied men for service at sea. At times, even convicted criminals have been pulled from jail cells and forced onto ships as labor. The result is a motley crew indeed, a band of men bound together by little except the need to survive the voyage. Some among them are very young, teens who might have been sent to sea as apprentices or cabin boys, and have since thrown in their lot with outlaws. Others are older, seasoned sailors who may have served in navies or on merchant voyages before turning to piracy. A fair number bear tattoos or earrings. Sailors sometimes pierce their ears and wear gold hoops, believing the gold earring might pay for a burial if their body washes ashore, or that it somehow improves their eyesight at sea. In truth, few expect a proper burial. If a man dies at sea, he will likely be sewn into canvas and slid overboard to sink into the depths, with maybe a short prayer if someone on board is pious. Are there any women on this pirate ship? It's very unlikely. While there are stories of a few female pirates in history, such as the famed Anne Bonny or Mary Read a century later, on most ships of the 16th century, women are not present. In fact, among sailors there is a common superstition that having a woman aboard is bad luck, said to anger the sea or distract the men from their duties. True or not, the reality is that this is an all-male world, rough and rowdy. The work on deck is punctuated by moments of rest. By midday you might steal a few minutes in the narrow strip of shade by a mast to nibble some salted meat for your meal. The salt pork or beef is kept in barrels below deck. It is heavily salted to preserve it, and even then, after weeks, it often stinks when the barrel is first opened. You cut off a strip of the salted meat. It's tough and must be boiled or soaked to remove some salt, but pirates in a hurry might just eat it as is, if needed. The meat is so salty that it puckers your mouth and makes you long for fresh water, but you settle for another swig of ale. Alongside the meat there might be dried peas or beans boiled into a kind of mush or soup. The cook may have thrown in whatever he could find, maybe a scrap of dried herb or an onion or two that have somehow lasted. But fresh food is scarce. The last time you saw a real vegetable or piece of fruit was perhaps when you stopped at a tropical island weeks ago and gathered some coconuts or limes. Those were eaten quickly. Little do you know those very fruits helped ward off a disease that is silently developing among the crew. One of your crewmates, a man named Robert, who often climbs the rigging, has been looking pale and weak. At first everyone thought he was just seasick or shirking work, but over the past weeks he has become more lethargic. Bruises mar his skin and he doesn't recall how he got them. When he shows you his arm, it looks as if someone had punched him, but no one did. His gums are swollen and bleed easily, making it painful for him to chew the hard biscuits. This morning, you noticed Robert didn't rise from his hammock for duty. He lies there, staring blankly, his legs too weak to lift. The crew whispers that he has caught the scurvy, a dreaded affliction on long voyages. Scurvy, though no one in this time knows exact cause, comes from a lack of fresh fruits and vegetables. It creeps in after months without those vitamins. To you and your shipmates, it is a mysterious malady. A man with scurvy becomes exhausted and miserable. Old wounds or scars can reopen, as if some unseen force is undoing any healing. Gums turn spongy and teeth may loosen or fall out. Sometimes the skin breaks out in ugly sores, and even minor bumps cause bleeding under the skin, those unexplained bruises. In advanced cases, the lucky ones die quickly. The unlucky linger in agony as their body essentially falls apart from the inside. You watch with a sinking feeling as the ship's surgeon, really just the cook, who has a bit of crude medical knowledge, comes to see Robert. There is not much he can do. Some aboard suggest a dose of vinegar, or perhaps some citrus if any were left, but we have none now. The surgeon might bleed him, a common but ineffective treatment, or give him a draught of herbs, but nothing seems to improve Robert's condition. Over the next days, you see him waste away. His skin is covered in blemishes and sores, and he can barely stand. Eventually, one quiet evening, Robert passes away in his sleep, his body too ravaged by scurvy to continue. There is no great ceremony. The captain orders a simple burial at sea. At dawn, the crew gathers silently, wrapped in a piece of sailcloth with a cannonball at his feet. Robert's body is released into the gentle wave. It slips beneath the surface without a splash, disappearing forever. A few men make the sign of the cross or whisper a prayer. It's an oddly peaceful moment amid the hardship, the sea quietly claiming one of our own. The mood on board is somber after that. You realize grimly that this fate could be yours or anyone's on the ship. Scurvy's likely begun to affect others, though Robert's case was the worst so far. Unfortunately, scurvy is just one of many illnesses stalking the crew. Another shipmate, perhaps the one whose hammock is slung next to yours, has been suffering from crippling diarrhea, what the crew calls the flux, or bloody flux. With limited sanitation on board, it's hard to control the spread of disease. There is no toilet on the ship, as we know it today. Instead, men relieve themselves by climbing out onto a basic wooden platform extending from the ship's bow, called the head, and doing their business directly over the waves. In stormy weather, that's nearly impossible, so often buckets are used, which then must be dumped overboard and rinsed. Cleanliness, as you can imagine, is difficult to maintain. Hands are not always washed, fresh water is too scarce to be wasted on washing, and soap is a luxury. As a result, germs, though no one yet understands germs, spread easily through the crew. The man with the flux likely got it from contaminated food or water. Perhaps one of the meat barrels had begun to rot, or rats, of which the ship has plenty, have been in the provisions and fouled them, or simply the cook's unwashed hands introduced something into the stew. Whatever the cause, he now suffers frequent painful diarrhea, often accompanied by fever and dehydration. He grows weaker by the day. On some days, he cannot even rise from where he lies, except when his bowels force him. The constant loss of fluid in this hot climate threatens his life as much as any battle might. The term dysentery is known to some. It has haunted armies and ships for ages, but treatments are few. He might be given a sip of laudanum, an opium tincture to ease the cramps, or a chalky mixture to calm the stomach, but these do little. Just hope you won't catch whatever he has. However, with everyone living elbow to elbow, the odds are not in your favor. By now, after weeks at sea, nearly everyone is contending with some ailment or discomfort. Some have persistent coughs that could be the onset of consumption, tuberculosis. Others have tropical fevers from mosquito bites when we passed a swampy coastline. Diseases like malaria or yellow fever lurk in those regions. Malaria can bring cycles of shivering chills followed by burning fever, leaving a man delirious and weak. You recall one night a week ago when a crewmate was raving in his hammock, drenched in sweat and babbling nonsense, likely in the grip of malarial fever. There is little to do except keep him hydrated as best we can and hope his body fights it off. If it were yellow fever, his eyes and skin might turn yellow as his liver fails, and death can come swift. We fear these tropical illnesses, but we do not know how to prevent them. Some blame the night air itself, bad air, or miasma. Others whisper it's a curse or punishment from God. Despite all this, you and the others carry on your duties. It's remarkable how much hardship men can adapt to when they have no other choice. Day after day you keep sailing. The ship has a destination, or perhaps it just roams in search of prey. As pirates, we are on the lookout for merchant ships fat with cargo, or perhaps a lightly defended coastal settlement we can raid for supplies. But the ocean is vast, and finding a target is mostly a matter of patience and luck. You spend long hours scanning the horizon. The sea and sky meet in a clean line, broken only occasionally by distant clouds or the gleam of sun on waves. It is peaceful in a way, but also monotonous. Time loses meaning beyond the cycle of watches and work shifts. During slow evenings, after the day's chores are done, some of the crew pass time by playing dice games or mending their threadbare clothes by lantern light. Others gather quietly and share old sea tales. They talk of ghost ships that wander eternally with cursed crews, and of mermaids that lure sailors to wreck on rocky shores. And these are just stories, told in hushed voices under the stars, but even the hardened pirates listen with a glint of fear and wonder in their eyes. Superstition runs deep among seafarers. There are countless little beliefs. Whistling on deck is discouraged, for it's said to whistle up an ill wind or a storm. Bananas are considered so unlucky they'd refuse to carry them. Sailors recall tales of voyages when a cargo of bananas coincided with disaster, perhaps because bananas rot and produce toxic fumes, or simply because someone long ago had a run of bad luck and blamed the fruit. Many sailors carry personal talismans or rituals. Some keep a lucky coin or a child's hand-knitted charm in their sea chest. Medieval folklore says a child's caul, the membrane from a newborn's head, can prevent drowning. Such things sometimes circulate among sailors for a hefty price. They have practices to appease the capricious forces of the sea. When a voyage begins, it's not uncommon for a captain to pour a bit of wine over the side as an offering to the ocean, a libation seeking safe passage. On especially calm days, when the wind dies, the dreaded doldrums, no one dares to say the word dead calm, and some will even refrain from humming a tune, fearing it might offend whatever spirit controls the breeze. During storms, if St. Elmo's fire appears, there's the eerie blue flames of static electricity that sometimes dance atop a ship's mast. Many on board take it as a divine sign. Catholic sailors might cross themselves and thank St. Erasmus, whom they called St. Elmo, for his heavenly protection. Seeing the ghostly glow as the saint's presence guiding them through danger, at times a silent shared reverence falls over the crew, like when a school of dolphins comes to ride the bow wave, leaping playfully in the day's last light. Even the roughest pirates crack a smile and consider it a good omen, a friendly blessing in the vast loneliness of the ocean. By contrast, if a lone albatross starts following the ship, no one would harm it. An old superstition holds that an albatross carries the soul of a lost sailor. To kill one invites disaster. Indeed, a famous poem will one day be written about that very curse. But in this era, the belief is already ingrained. Let the great bird be, and perhaps it will bring favorable winds. Religion, too, has a subtle presence on board. Our ship has no official priest, but many men carry crosses or small Bibles tucked away. In moments of extreme peril, a gale, a battle, or when illness brings them low, you'll see even those who normally swear and swagger with abandon, murmuring prayers. Some promise God or the Virgin Mary that they will mend their ways if only they survive. Whether Protestant or Catholic, each man has a memory of faith from home that surfaces in times of need. On Spanish ships, there might be daily prayers or mass. On our more freewheeling pirate vessel, it's individual and quiet, but it's there. In fact, after Robert died of scurvy, one of the older pirates, who once sailed in a Spanish crew, arranged a few candles and led a brief, whispered prayer for the dead. Such gestures remind everyone that despite their lawless profession, they still seek mercy, from higher powers. Each new day brings the same routines. It's afternoon now, and the watch on duty marches back and forth on deck, scanning the bright horizon. The heat is sweltering and mirages shimmer on the water. Suddenly a shout breaks the torpor. The lookout high up on the mast has spotted something. "Sail ho!" he cries, his voice ringing down from above. Instantly, the ship comes alive with energy. You shade your eyes and peer where he's pointing. At the edge of the horizon, a tiny speck, like a pinprick of white, breaks the line between blue sea and blue sky. Every pirate on deck feels a surge of adrenaline, tempered by caution. Is it a lone merchant ship? Or could it be a well-armed Spanish galleon, perhaps even a military escort? The captain raises his telescope, a prized brass spyglass, and spends a long minute studying the distant sail. All hands wait in hushed anticipation, hearts thumping a little faster. In moments like this, you can sense why some people later romanticize piracy. The thrill of the chase, the rush of possibility when prey is in sight. But with that promise comes uncertainty and fear, for this could just as well be the end of us if we choose poorly. The captain snaps the telescope shut and makes his decision. He believes it's a merchant carrack, heavily laden and riding low in the water, a ripe target, possibly Spanish or Portuguese by its build. It appears to be sailing without obvious escort. We will give chase. Our ship turns eagerly towards the distant vessel, sails trimmed to catch the wind. The pursuit is on. Hours pass as the shape grows larger on the horizon. Eventually, you can make out the outline of a sturdy trade ship, perhaps a Spanish cargo now with high castles fore and aft. It likely carries valuable goods, maybe barrels of New World silver, or stacks of fine textiles, or casks of spices from the Indies. But it also surely carries armed men and some cannons of its own. As we close the distance, attention electrifies the crew. Men quietly check their pistols, reload their muskets, and loosen swords and scabbards. You do the same, though your hands tremble slightly. A battle looms. You steel yourself by remembering that we have the advantage of surprise and initiative. Pirates often succeed by terrifying their prey into surrender. If we raise a black flag or a red flag, red often means no quarter given, a fearsome message, maybe the merchants will lose their nerve. No one really wants a fight if it can be avoided. Battle is dangerous and could damage the very prize we're after. Our nimble ship gains on the target by late afternoon. Now we're near enough to see the other vessel's sails clearly and the movement of her crew on deck. They have spotted us too. The merchant ship adjusts its course, perhaps trying to flee downwind or position its few guns to deter us. We hoist our colours. Up the mast goes the dark flag. It might not be the classic skull and crossbones, that emblem will become popular a bit later, but whatever our banner, its meaning is clear enough as we bear down on our quarry. The chase narrows to a final distance. Both ships race through the gentle swells, white water foaming at their bows. Then comes the boom of a cannon. A puff of grey-white smoke blossoms from the stern of the merchantman. A moment later, a heavy ball of iron splashes into the sea just off our starboard side. They're firing a warning shot, or their aim at this range is off. Our captain is undeterred. He calls for our own gunners to respond. You rush to your station at one of the small cannons on our deck. The gunner, his hands blackened with powder, already has the charge prepared. The iron cannonball is loaded, powder packed behind it, and a glowing match held ready at the touch hole. Fire! The cannon leaps back with a thunderous crack, belching flame and thick smoke. The smell of sulphurous gunpowder engulfs the deck, sharp and acrid, catching in your throat. You hear the rushing sound of our shot flying toward the target. Moments later, someone shouts that we hit. Perhaps we've torn a hole in their mainsail or smashed a rail. An exchange of cannon fire erupts. The afternoon light dims under a haze of gun smoke. Each blast jolts the ship, the recoil sending shudders through the timbers. You cover your ears at each deafening boom, but still your skull vibrates with the concussion of each shot. The enemy returns fire. A distant flash, a faint whistle, then a tremendous crack. Wood splinters and screams follow as a cannonball from the merchant ship rips into our bulwark. Jagged shards of oak hurtle through the air like daggers. One of our crew near you cries out and crumples. A wooden splinter the length of a dagger has run clean through his thigh, but there's no time to tend to him yet. The two ships are closing distance rapidly. Our helmsman deftly steers to avoid the merchant's heaviest guns. We aim to grapple and board as fast as possible, because a protracted gun duel could damage us badly or even sink one of the ships, destroying the very prize we seek. Within minutes, we are upon them. The spray from their bow as we cut across their course splashes over our deck. Grappling hooks are thrown out with a whoosh and clang. Heavy iron hooks on ropes, tossed by our strongest arms, arc through the air and catch hold of the merchant ship's rails and rigging. We pull with collective grunts, yanking the ships together until with a loud bump and scrape, our hull presses alongside theirs. Now comes the most feared part of any pirate attack: boarding. Our captain draws his cutlass and hollers, "Follow me, lads!" With a wild yell, the first wave of pirates clambers up and over the rail onto the enemy deck. They are met immediately by the merchant crew wielding pikes, hatchets, and a few swords. Chaos explodes. The moment your feet hit the enemy deck, the scene around you is a blur of swinging blades and flying sparks from clashing steel. Smoke from pistol shots hangs in the air. A defender lunges at you with a pike. You parry clumsily with your cutlass. The force of the blow sends a shock up your arm. Somehow you sidestep and counter, slashing at his shoulder. The man cries out and stumbles back, and one of your crewmates tackles him to the planks. All around, fierce hand-to-hand fighting rages in close quarters. The noise is tremendous. Men shouting curses or screaming in pain. The ring of metal on metal. The booming of the last few cannons, firing point blank as some gunners refuse to quit their posts. You duck as a flintlock pistol goes off nearby. The flash singes your hair, and the ball whizzes by your ear. On the far side of the deck, you see the merchant captain, identifiable by his fine coat, firing a blunderbuss into a knot of pirates. One of our men is hit by the spray of shot and goes down hard, but our pirates keep coming relentlessly, driven by fury and the scent of victory. Little by little, the pockets of resistance are overwhelmed. After what feels like an eternity, but is likely only minutes, the merchant crew begins to yield. Their officers are down, many crew lie wounded or dead, and the rest realize they are outnumbered and outmatched. One by one, weapons clatter to the deck as they throw them down and raise their hands in surrender. A ragged cheer goes up from the pirates. The ship is ours, and just like that, the frenzied violence stops. You stand there, panting, adrenaline still coursing through you, trying to comprehend that you're alive and the fight is over. The deck beneath your feet is slick with spattered blood and littered with debris, dropped weapons, splinters, and a few lifeless bodies. The air reeks of burnt powder. Your ears ring from the cannon blasts. But you are alive, not even badly hurt, save for a shallow cut on your left arm you hadn't noticed in the heat of action. You silently give thanks for your luck. Now comes the grim accounting. We've lost a few of our own in the fight. They lie among several more enemy dead. The victory is ours, but at a cost. There's little time to dwell on it, though. The captain immediately barks orders to secure the prisoners and tend to the ship. The surviving enemy sailors, their eyes wide with fear and shock, are rounded up and made to kneel, under guard. They know pirates have a fearsome reputation for cruelty and wonder if any mercy will be shown. Meanwhile, some of our crew begin to extinguish small fires. A fallen lantern has set some rope smouldering, which we quickly stamp out, and others retrieve the wounded, both friend and foe, carrying them carefully to the merchant ship's hatch, where there's shade. Now we face a choice: what to do with the captured crew. They likely number a dozen or more still alive. Keeping many prisoners is risky and burdensome. We have limited hands to guard them, and limited food and water to feed them. The captain quickly decides. He offers the captured sailors a small boat, provisions of water and some dried food, and lets them go. It's more mercy than some pirates would grant, but our captain is not needlessly bloodthirsty, and he'd rather not have to execute men who've yielded, nor have them on our conscience or our deck. Grateful or not, the defeated crew is ordered into the ship's longboat. Wide-eyed, they clamber down with a few oars, their lives spared but their fates uncertain on the open sea. Perhaps they'll reach a nearby island or be picked up by a passing Spanish patrol. Either way, they're no longer our concern. The captured merchant ship is now ours to loot. With wary eyes on the horizon in case the noise of battle attracted unwanted attention, we begin to work quickly. The prize ship's hold is our treasure trove. Lanterns are lit and brought below decks. In that dim cargo space, pirates pry open crates and barrels with iron crowbars and seamen's knives. What they find draws gasps and shouts of joy. Here are stacks of rich goods, sacks of fragrant cocoa and coffee, bolts of fine silk and damask, chests of indigo dye and heavy bags that clink with the unmistakable sound of coin. In the flickering lantern light, one such heavy wooden chest bound with iron is dragged out. They set it on the deck for all to see. With a pry bar, the quartermaster forces it open. Inside is a sight that makes everyone gasp softly. Glinting metal, coins, and perhaps small silver ingots, heaped together. The coins are of many types: Spanish doubloons, Portuguese cruzados, a few gleaming gold escudos, likely the accumulated proceeds of trade or taxes being shipped home. Now and then a glint of green or red hints at a stray emerald or ruby amid the bounty. There might even be a few small bars of pure silver from a New World mine nestled in the chest. While not a king's fortune, this haul represents more wealth than any common sailor could earn in a lifetime of honest work. A cheer goes up as the pirates realize the extent of the plunder. This is why they risk everything for moments like this. The quartermaster, who usually oversees the division of loot, begins tallying and organizing. By custom, pirates will share the take according to agreed shares. The captain might get 2 shares, the quartermaster perhaps 1.5, and each other man 1 share. There's also often a set reward in the pirate articles for those wounded in action, monetary compensation for a lost limb or eye, to be paid out of the loot before division. Such crude insurance is one of the strangely civilized aspects of pirate life that many regular naval sailors envy. Darkness falls as we work. Both ships have been sailed or towed to a secluded cove behind a remote island, away from main shipping lanes, so we can transfer goods and make repairs out of sight. It is night by the time this grim work is done. Fires from braziers and lanterns dot the darkness as the pirates labor, sweat running down soot and salt-crusted faces. The wounded have finally been attended to by our makeshift surgeon, who has set broken bones and bandaged cuts as well as he can in the flickering lantern light. One man had a musket ball shatter his upper arm. The surgeon had to amputate. With no anesthetic beyond a swig of rum and a leather strap for the poor fellow to bite down on, the surgeon sawed through flesh and bone by lantern glow. The man survived the operation, howling into his gag, and now lies pale and trembling, but alive, with his stump cauterized and bound. The deck where the combat took place is a ghastly scene. It's slick with blood and strewn with debris. Throughout the night, some of us wash it down with seawater and mops, trying to remove the gore. The bodies of enemy dead are unceremoniously heaved into the sea. It might sound cruel, but we cannot afford sentiment for them, and the sea will take them. Later that night, as others celebrate the victory with extra rations of rum and wine, the crew breaks into a rowdy song below decks, a favorite old sea shanty echoing through the timbers as they toast their good fortune. Many boast of what they will do with their shares of plunder. One dreams of buying a cozy alehouse in Portsmouth. Another swears he'll return to England and live like a lord on his earnings. Faces that were gaunt with worry just a day before now beam with laughter and wild hope. Meanwhile, you find a quiet moment for yourself on the forecastle, the raised forward deck. Leaning on the rail, you stare out at the dark silhouette of the island nearby. The sea has calmed to a gentle slosh against the hull. Above, the stars are brilliant as ever, yet you cannot shake an underlying unease. For all this triumph tonight, you know fortune's wheel can turn quickly at sea. Were it not for a bit of luck, you might be among the corpses floating in our wake. You take a swig from a bottle of wine pilfered from the prize's stores and let the warm burn settle your nerves. At dawn, we gather to bury our dead. One by one, our fallen crewmates, wrapped in sailcloth and weighted with shot, are released into the still morning sea. No volleys of gunfire mark the occasion, only the hushed breathing of the crew and the gentle lap of water as each body slips away. A few crewmen silently cross themselves, others whisper a brief farewell. Then, as always, it's back to the tasks at hand. The living have much to do, and the dead are left to the depths. The next few days are spent making full repairs and resting. The weather stays clear, a blessing after so much turmoil. With the extra hands from our small crew, we decide not to keep the captured merchant ship. We haven't enough men to sail 2 ships effectively, and a stolen prize is like a beacon for Navy hunters. So we strip it of everything useful: spare sailcloth, coils of rope, extra cannon and shot, food and fresh water stores. Once we've taken all we can, the empty husk of the vessel is set adrift, a ghost ship left to the currents. If luck holds, it might run aground somewhere or simply wander until found by a Spanish patrol. Either way, it's gone, along with any heavy cargo we hadn't moved yet. We console ourselves that we took the most valuable goods. Ships can be lost so easily. At least, we didn't lose ours. We drop anchor in a hidden cove along an uninhabited island to tend to our needs. The cove is fringed with mangrove trees and a curve of white sand. Few run-down huts on the shore hint that a handful of fishermen or outcasts live here. When we land, the people there greet us warily but not fearfully. They've seen pirates before. Even so, a few villagers keep their distance, weapons in hand, ready in case our intentions turn hostile. A reminder that not all such meetings between Europeans and islanders end peacefully. Too often, mistrust or a misunderstanding can flare into violence. But today, caution and curiosity prevail on both sides, and we come together for mutual benefit. Here we can refill our water barrels from a clear spring, and perhaps trade some of the spices or cloth we've seized for fresh fruit, vegetables and meat. The sheer joy of biting into a fresh pineapple or an orange after months at sea is indescribable. The sweet juice flooding your mouth is like nectar after endless salt and dryness. We linger on the shore for a time, letting the gentle breeze from the jungle interior cool our sun-scorched skin. The island is alive with sounds and scents alien to the open ocean. Birds calling in the trees, insects buzzing, the rich smell of wet earth and lush foliage. Some of the crew wander inland a little, just to stretch their legs properly for the first time in months. Imagine the sensation of feeling steady ground underfoot that isn't pitching and rolling. A few men almost stumble, their land legs not yet adjusted after so long afloat, and there is friendly laughter at that. To walk on solid land feels both wonderful and strange, as if the earth itself were unreal after endless days of shifting decks beneath our feet. We set up small cook fires on the beach and roast fish that local fishermen traded to us. The fish, caught just that morning, tastes flaky and delicate, pure bliss to palates tired of salted meat and ship's biscuit. A soft rain shower blows over in the late afternoon, but instead of scrambling for cover as we would on the ship, here we simply tilt our faces up and let the warm, fresh water wash over us, rinsing the salt and sweat from our skin and hair. For a brief moment in time, we live almost like castaways or beachcombers, untroubled by chase or toil. Under the palm trees, some men even doze off on the sand, the sound of waves gently lapping the shore, lulling them into the first truly peaceful sleep they've had in ages. Dusk comes softly. Fireflies blink in the bushes as the tropical night symphony begins. We light a few lanterns and pass around a jug of rum obtained in trade. The mood is mellow and reflective. This is as close to contentment as our band of pirates may ever get. In these gentle moments, the men swap yarns, some true, many exaggerated. They sing a few low songs, nostalgic ballads of home or humorous ditties about past exploits. The harmonies are rough but earnest. One pirate produces a fiddle and plays a slow, haunting melody that drifts over the starlit bay. Looking up, we see an astonishing canopy of stars. With no towns for hundreds of miles, the Milky Way arches overhead in a bright river of light. It reminds us how small we are beneath the cosmos. Each man privately ponders his fate. Some perhaps offer a prayer of thanks to still be alive. Others maybe think of loved ones far away. Life on land in this little haven is sweet but short. Before long, the captain is eager to be at sea again, to take our riches home or find a port to offload them and to continue our voyage. One golden afternoon, we raise anchor and make ready to depart the tranquil cove. We leave behind a few trinkets as gifts to the locals who helped us, perhaps some silk or spices, as well as payment for the livestock and fruits we acquired. Not all pirates would bother, but a bit of goodwill might ensure a welcome if we ever return. The sails are unfurled, catching the steady breeze, and our ship slips out of the bay. The silhouettes of the waving islanders shrink and vanish at the tree-lined shore. We are off again, our hull a little lower in the water now, from the weight of treasure in our hold. We sail onward, but fate, as ever, has more in store. Some days later, the sky darkens. The clear, bright weather gives way to heavy clouds blotting out the sun. The wind shifts and starts to howl. A sense of dread gnaws at every experienced sailor on board. We know these tropical waters can brew ferocious storms with little warning. By afternoon, the ocean has become a wild, heaving expanse. Ominous black clouds roll overhead. The day turns as dark as dusk. Rain begins to lash down in stinging sheets. The wind rises to a banshee scream through the rigging. Soon, mountainous waves toss the ship. One moment we're climbing a steep wall of water. The next, we're plunging down into a trough with foaming water towering above our masts. You cling to a rope on deck, drenched to the bone, straining to hear orders that are whipped away by the gale. The ship's bow buries into one wave and then rises on the next. Water washes over the deck in torrents. Each time, it nearly knocks you off your feet as the flood surges past, ankled and then knee-deep before draining out the scuppers. Everyone not crucial aloft is tied to something. A loose man in a storm can be flung into the sea in an instant. It's all hands on deck. The captain bellows to take in sail. We can't carry much canvas in this wind without risk of dismasting. Half the crew, those most sure-footed, scramble aloft despite the whipping wind and driving rain. They furl the top gallants and reef the mainsails, fingers numb and bodies slammed by gusts as they cling to swaying yards high above the deck. Others work two at a time to secure cannon and barrels that aren't already lashed. A loose cannon sliding across the deck could crush a man or bash a hole in our hull. The timbers of the ship groan and shudder under the onslaught of each giant wave. The night is pitch black. Only the flashes of lightning give split-second glimpses of the chaotic scene. Men braced at the helm, fighting to hold our course, sails flapping in tatters, water cascading everywhere. Thunder booms nearly continuously as if the heavens are at war right above us. Down in the hold, panic would be rising too. Sea water finds its way in through every seam when a ship pitches like this. Barrels knock against each other. The carpenter and a few helpers rush below to check for leaks or breaches. In the semi-dark hold, lit by swinging lanterns, they search for any sprung planks where water jets in. If found, they hammer in wedges of wood and sticky oakum to slow the flooding. Meanwhile, you take your turn at the pumps. Long wooden pump handles that you push and pull with all your strength to force water out from the ship's bottom. It's grueling work under normal conditions, let alone as the ship tosses violently. But everyone rotates through because if we don't keep up with the incoming water, we'll founder. Hour after hour, the tempest shows no mercy. You have lost all sense of time and direction. The world has shrunk to just the raging ocean and our beleaguered ship fighting for survival. At one point, a monstrous wave breaks over the ship, toppling everyone not secured. A terrified cry rises above the wind. A man is overboard. You glimpse him in a lightning flash, here 1 second, and gone the next. Swallowed by the boiling sea, there's no chance to save him. In these conditions, lowering a boat or even throwing a buoy is impossible. The cold knowledge that one of your crew has just vanished into the depths without a trace sends a chill through you even as sweat and rain soak your body. But you push the morbid thought aside and focus on the task at hand. The storm must eventually end, you tell yourself over and over like a prayer. And sure enough, towards dawn, the wind begins to abate. The waves, though still high, lose some of their murderous steepness. The torrential rain eases to a heavy drizzle and then finally stops. When daylight comes, the sky is left overcast but calmer. A faint rainbow arches in the western sky, where the sun's rays peek under the remaining clouds. The air smells strangely fresh, washed clean by the tempest. Around us, the ocean still heaves, but with a gentler rhythm now, and bits of driftwood and torn sailcloth float by, sad remnants of the night's fury. We have survived the storm, but as the grey morning light spreads, we take stock of the damage. The ship is battered, but afloat. Some of the rigging was carried away. One of the yards, the horizontal spars, on the mainmast is splintered and hangs loose. A section of our bulwark is stove in, where a wave hit like a battering ram. Water sloshes in the hold. We must pump it out for hours more. Exhausted crew lie about the deck, soaked and shivering. catching their breath and thanking Providence to be alive. One face is notably missing, the young sailor who went overboard in the night. Quietly, those who knew him exchange a few words of grief, but mostly there is a stunned silence. In the cruel arithmetic of the sea, losing only one man in such a gale feels like a bittersweet mercy. Repairs begin almost immediately, despite every muscle aching and every heart weary. The carpenter and some hands start jury-rigging the broken yard with spare timber. Sailors climb up gingerly to untangle and refasten lines. We have some spare sailcloth and rope from the prize ship, which now prove their worth in patching our storm-racked vessel. The sun creeps out from behind the dispersing clouds by afternoon, bringing warmth again. We lay our soaked clothes and bedding out to dry all over the deck. The ship ends up festooned with hanging shirts and blankets, like some floating laundry, but it's necessary to prevent rot and sickness. Yet they also smile a little, tired, wan grins of survivors who have passed a great trial. Half the crew may have been praying or bargaining with God during that black night, though none would admit it openly now. Such trials forge a certain camaraderie. Even the captain, who maintained a steely facade throughout, claps a few men on the back and mutters gruff compliments about their steadfastness. Surviving a deadly storm binds the crew more surely than any pirate code written on paper. Before long, it's back to business. The lure of treasure and the needs of survival don't allow for long reveries. We continue on our voyage, adjusting our course, using whatever navigational reckoning we can after being blown off track. Perhaps ironically, that violent storm has scattered any pursuit that might have been on our tail and left us alone on the sea once more. Weeks pass. The pattern of life at sea returns. Long stretches of uneventful sailing, punctuated by bursts of intense activity or danger. By now, you have truly seen how a pirate's life oscillates between tedium and terror. On some days, the sun beats down relentlessly, and not a whisper of wind fills the sails, leaving the ship becalmed and crew listless with sweat. These doldrums can last for days, the ocean a flat expanse under a glaring sky. Water starts to go bad, tempers flare, and hope clings to any sign of a breeze. On other days, squalls or the sudden appearance of a hostile sail on the horizon sends everyone scrambling to their posts, hearts pounding once more. Let us pause and consider the larger picture of what we have been living. We are one ship among hundreds out roaming the world's oceans in this age. Each is part of a grand historical tide, the surge of European expansion, commerce and conflict spilling across the globe. The Spanish and Portuguese have already established vast empires overseas, extracting unimaginable wealth in silver, gold, spices and other goods. The English, French and Dutch are eager to cut themselves a piece of this pie. Where there is wealth, there are those willing to steal it. Thus, piracy flourishes like never before, riding on the currents of empire. Our own captain has a letter of marque, or so he claims, from the English crown. It is said to bear the royal seal, and the captain keeps that parchment carefully protected in oilcloth, for should we fall into friendly hands, it might serve as his salvation. This paper, signed by Queen Elizabeth's officials, supposedly gives us legal permission to raid Spanish ships and towns, since England and Spain are at war. In theory, that makes us privateers, not pirates, at least in England's eyes. But to Spain, that paper means nothing. To them, we are pirates, pure and simple. Likewise, if the Spanish catch us, they will treat us as such. There will be no courteous prisoner of war status for us, no mercy. We have heard the tales of what happens to pirates when captured by the Spanish. If we're lucky, a swift hanging, if not, perhaps a garrote, being strangled slowly by an iron collar, or even being burned alive if they consider you not only a pirate, but a heretic. The Inquisition is known to handle some captured privateers, especially if they are Protestants in Catholic Spanish domains. That thought sends a chill through you on even the warmest day. You recall hearing of one English captain, John Oxenham, a companion of Drake's, who in the 1570s ventured into the Pacific on his own and was captured by Spanish forces. They delivered him to the Inquisitors in Lima, who tortured and executed him as both a pirate and a heretic in 1580. Such stories are whispered among sailors, a grim reminder of what fate awaits if you fall into enemy hands. Our own voyage continues to teeter between fortune and peril. Some days we spot a sail on the horizon and give chase, only to find it's a well-armed Spanish war galleon. Then we must flee, using every trick of seamanship to escape, dumping ballast to gain speed, steering into a squall where the heavier galleon dare not follow, or slipping away at night. On one occasion, a Spanish patrol nearly corners us in a remote bay, and we avoid detection only by hiding in a mangrove inlet and draping canvas over the mast to blend with the shoreline. Such close calls are frequent. The Spanish governor of the Caribbean has by now likely heard of our exploits, and no doubt put a price on our heads. Every Spanish frigate or hired pirate hunter in these waters would be happy to bring our ship in and string us from the yardarm. Amid this constant danger, there are moments when you or a crewmate wonders in a low voice, was it worth it? The gold and goods we've taken promise a life of ease if we can ever spend them in safety. But what chance is there to enjoy that wealth? Many privateers and pirates meet their end before they can retire. Indeed, an English ballad might later joke about the devil's dozen. Out of a dozen pirates, 11 are sure to dance the hempen jig, hang, and the 12th lives out his days in misery. It's hyperbole, but not far off. The men sometimes speak of home during quieter nights, sitting under the stars, perhaps with the last of the day's rum ration warming their bellies. They share memories of childhood, or fantasies of what they'll do if they survive. One says he'll buy a little farm in the English countryside and never go near water again. Another plans to return to his home tavern in Cornwall and regale the locals with tales, leaving out the worst parts, no doubt. These dreams are often followed by a chuckle or a shake of the head, as if to dismiss them. No pirate likes to admit longing for home or doubt about his path. But you can tell the thought is there in many, the yearning for a normal life without constant fear. As we sail further, our adventures would fill volumes, but by now you have seen enough to understand why a real pirate's life in the Age of Discovery was so difficult to survive. You have endured the daily grind of hunger and thirst, the outbreaks of disease that can decimate a crew, the violent clashes of steel and the roar of cannon, the brutal discipline and harsh punishments, the wrath of nature in storm and calm, the ever-present threat of betrayal or capture, and the weight of isolation, far from any refuge or rescue. It is a life lived on the edge of death at every moment. Eventually, after what feels like years, perhaps it has been many months in truth, you find yourself gazing toward a familiar coastline. It's the Caribbean island where a certain port, a known pirate's haven, lies waiting. Perhaps it's Port Royal in Jamaica, notorious later as a pirate den, or a hidden cove in Tortuga, or an unofficial trading post on the Gulf of Honduras. Wherever it is, it means rest at last. A cheer goes up when the lookout sings out that he sees the land rise from the morning mist. You smile, thinking of solid ground, and maybe spending a little of that hard-won plunder on a hot meal, or a mug of strong ale served to you instead of the other way around. Our ship sails into the bay, among other vessels of dubious legality flying assorted flags. The anchor splashes down as we furl the sails one final time. A calm comes over the crew. We've made it. Tattered, weather-beaten, scarred, but alive and richer than before. There will likely be celebrations tonight in the taverns ashore. Some of us may squander our entire share of treasure in a matter of days on rum and revelry, as pirates often do, living for the moment with little thought of the future. Others might try to save their coin or find passage back to England or France, perhaps hoping to buy a pardon or start anew under a different name. The ending of each pirate varies. A few may cheat the gallows and slip into obscurity, but many will meet a violent den sooner or later, unable to escape the long arm of the law or the ceaseless dangers of their trade. Now, in a quiet moment on deck, as the sun sets over the port's rooftops, turning the sky a gentle orange pink, you reflect on how extraordinary this journey has been, and how close to death you've come time and again. The gentle tropical evening is a world away from the terror of that storm or the bloodbath of battle. You lean on the rail and watch the harbour lights beginning to twinkle. Somewhere on shore, a fiddle is playing a lively tune, and you can hear faint laughter, the carefree sounds of people who, unlike you, probably slept safely last night. In that reflective mood, you also recall the wider saga you've been part of. For you, it was personal survival. But for the world, these voyages of discovery and plunder have forever changed history. The gold and silver taken from the New World fueled European economies and wars for generations. Ships like yours, whether pirates or explorers or traders, connected continents, for better or worse, exchanging goods, people, and ideas, and spreading disease and conflict too. It's sobering to remember that for every richly laden galleon that made it home with a king's ransom, dozens of ships and thousands of lives were lost to storms, scurvy, or warfare during this relentless quest for riches and empire. Indeed, the Spanish treasure fleets carried so much silver from the Americas that global commerce transformed. Prices in Europe rose with the influx of bullion, and some of that silver even traveled on to India and China via trade, linking economies continents apart. The European powers learnt that control of the seas meant control of trade and wealth, leading to the establishment of mighty naval traditions. The English and Dutch founded great trading companies, like the East India Company, not long after, to capitalize on the routes to Asia that pirates and privateers had helped uncover, though those companies too often acted as ruthlessly as pirates when seizing monopolies and colonies. Over time, Spain's dominance waned, as its riches were siphoned off, and its rivals grew bolder and more organized at sea. The contest of pirate and empire ultimately forced progress, better ships, better navigation, and international agreements. In total, thousands of lives and hundreds of ships were lost during this era's relentless quest for riches and empire. A human cost often forgotten when one marvels at the maps and treasures that came from these voyages. Now, centuries later, we can acknowledge all this with a calm, detached perspective. We recognize that though these events are long past, they are not forgotten. Those pirates of old, through their defiance, forced states to strengthen navies and cooperate to tame the seas. Nations eventually banded together to declare piracy hostis humani generis, an enemy of all mankind, a crime anyone could punish. This principle, born from those lawless days, still influences international law. The very concepts of maritime insurance and convoy protection emerged as responses to the threats posed by pirates and perilous voyages. The legacy of exploration and piracy is woven into the fabric of modern shipping, commerce, and global relations. In a calm, reflective way, we can see that the myth of the pirate has far outlived the reality. Over the years, the true story of life as a pirate has transformed into legend. Tales told in taverns and much later embellished in books and movies. But you, having journeyed with me through these memories, now know the truth behind the legends. As we drift back to the present, let us leave that brutal era behind. We release the image of the creaking ship and its tattered crew, letting it fade into the mist of history. You lie here now in a soft bed, a world away from that perilous seafaring life, free to simply close your eyes and rest, a luxury most pirates could only dream of. The next time you see a depiction of a jolly pirate swinging on a rope with a cutlass in his teeth, think of the real men who lived that life, their cracked, tar-stained hands, their empty stomachs, their feverish brows, and their constant fear of the noose. The real pirates did not spend their days singing catchy tunes on deck, except perhaps crude chants to keep morale up while working. More often they bled, shivered, and struggled just to stay alive. Their treasure was usually stolen commodities, quickly traded or squandered, not chests of gold buried on some idyllic island. Very few sailed off into any sunset. Most met grim fates long before old age. Now our tale draws to a gentle close. We have travelled far together, across bright blue seas and into the heart of darkness that was the pirate's reality. We have seen that the romanticized adventure is only a thin layer over a much harder truth. Let all those images of pirate glory gently dissolve now into the night, like a mirage melting away. In their place, what remains is a deep appreciation for the peace and safety of our own lives. You are here, warm and secure, in a different world than the one we visited tonight. No storms howl outside your window, no wooden deck lurches beneath you. You can simply breathe and lie still. The brutal age of discovery and piracy is long, long past. The sea that once seemed endless and full of peril is now mostly mapped and orderly, and the pirates of old exist only in history books and stories. Sleep now, lulled by the knowledge that you need not face those trials. May your dreams be calm and your rest untroubled, for the only voyages you make henceforth will be pleasant ones in the mind, and the only seas you sail are serene and safe. Now the waves in our imagination grow still, rocking us softly like a cradle until sleep gently comes. Let the creaking of that old wooden ship and the distant whisper of wind in its sails fade away. You have traveled far in this gentle story and seen much hardship in your mind's eye. It is time to leave it all behind and drift into a peaceful slumber, knowing that you are here in a safer world and that the brutal era of real pirates is long, long past. Sleep now, and may the only voyages you undertake be blissful and the only oceans you cross be those of sweet, quiet dreams. Good night.